All right, so you want to dive into this whole good clinical practice thing,
Yeah.
GCP.
Uh-huh.
You're really interested in ICH E6.
Yeah, it's
which is like
pretty much the Bible if you're involved in
for anyone who's doing
clinical research at all.
clinical research.
Especially for drug development.
Exactly. And we've got a lot of interesting stuff to cover for this deep dive.
Yeah, we do.
We've got the ICH E6 guidelines themselves.
Uh-huh.
We've got some bits from the Code of Federal Regulations.
Yeah.
And even some insights into how they test like really specific things to make sure that a new drug doesn't like mess with your heart rhythm or something.
Exactly. It's amazing how much goes into making sure a drug is both safe and effective.
Right.
It's not just about the science itself.
Yeah.
It's also about protecting the people who volunteer for these trials.
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about.
Right.
Like what really struck me going through all this stuff is how much emphasis there is on the ethical side of things.
Absolutely.
Like, why are these GCP guidelines so important in the first place?
Well, I mean, think about it. You're asking people to try a drug that's still being tested.
Right.
You know, with potential risks that may not even be fully known yet.
Yeah.
So you really need a system in place that protects their rights.
Okay.
Protects their safety.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where GCP comes in.
Okay.
It sets the standard for ethical conduct in clinical research worldwide.
Gotcha. So it's not just about making sure that the science is solid. It's also about treating the people in those trials with respect.
Absolutely.
And making sure they're not being taken advantage of or anything.
Exactly. And a huge part of that is informed consent.
Right.
You can't just enroll someone in a trial without making sure that they really understand what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
The potential benefits,
the
risks, the procedures, everything.
Okay. And it seems like
everything
in these guidelines I'm noticing, there's a lot of emphasis on documentation.
Yes.
It seems like everything needs to be recorded in detail.
Absolutely. Meticulous record keeping is crucial.
Okay.
And it's crucial for a few reasons.
Okay.
First, it keeps things transparent.
Okay.
So everyone involved, including regulatory bodies like the FDA, can see exactly what happened in the trial.
Okay.
Second, it helps to ensure that the data collected is accurate and reliable.
Makes sense.
You know, if there are ever any questions about the results, researchers can go back and check how the information was gathered and how it was analyzed.
Yeah.
And of course, it keeps everyone accountable.
Okay.
If something goes wrong,
you
can trace it back and figure out where the breakdown occurred.
Makes sense. So who's the one who's in charge of making sure all of this happens? According to the rules?
That would be the investigator.
Right.
Specifically, the principal investigator, or the PI.
Okay, the PI.
Yeah, they're basically the captain of the ship at each trial site. They make sure everything runs according to the study protocol.
Okay.
Which is basically the rule book for how that specific trial should be conducted.
So the PI is responsible for things like making sure people give informed consent.
Absolutely.
Collecting data accurately. And dealing with any unexpected issues that come up.
That's right. Plus, they're the ones making sure that all the data is being properly recorded in those case report forms.
Yeah.
The CRFs we see mentioned all over these documents.
CRF, so it's like a detailed file for each person participating in the trial.
Exactly. And if those CRFs aren't accurate and complete, it can throw the entire trial into question.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the sources I was looking at even mentioned a case where a PI got into serious trouble for messing with the data in the CRFs.
Oh, wow.
Turns out they were trying to hide some mistakes, and it ended up being a huge mess.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how crucial it is to have a trustworthy and meticulous PI leading the trial.
Absolutely.
And speaking of following the rules.
Yes.
What exactly does protocol adherence mean in this world of GCP?
Well, the protocol is like the blueprint for the trial.
Okay.
It lays out exactly how everything should be done. Sticking to the protocol is absolutely critical.
Okay.
Because any deviation from the plan can mess up the whole study.
So even small changes could throw off the results.
Exactly. And more importantly, it could put people's safety at risk.
Right.
Imagine if a researcher just decided to increase the dosage of a drug without going through the proper channels. That could have serious consequences.
Definitely. So how do they handle situations where the protocol needs to be adjusted?
Right.
Like, let's say they find out that the initial dosage is too low or something.
That's where protocol amendments come in.
Okay.
Not a free-for-all. Any changes need to be carefully considered, documented and approved by both the sponsor of the trial and an institutional review board, or IRB. They act as kind of like an independent committee that makes sure the changes are ethical.
So IRBs are like an extra layer of protection.
Yeah.
Making sure the trial is being conducted responsibly.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the PI, informed consent, protocol adherence.
Right.
But it seems like they're not operating in a vacuum.
No.
Who else is involved in overseeing clinical research?
Well, the PI is kind of like the on-the-ground leader.
Right.
But there's a whole network of people making sure things run smoothly. And one of the key players is the sponsor of the trial.
And the sponsor is?
They're the ones footing the bill for the trial.
Okay.
Usually the organization or company that developed the drug in the first place could be a pharmaceutical giant, a government agency, or even a university.
Okay, so they're responsible.
They are responsible for choosing qualified investigators.
Okay.
Making sure there are enough resources to conduct the trial properly.
Right.
And keeping tabs on everything to ensure that GCP is being followed.
So they're kind of like the project manager.
That's a good way to put it.
Making sure everything stays on track within budget.
They're also responsible for making sure that the trial gets registered and all the results are reported, even if the outcome isn't what they were hoping for.
Yeah.
Transparency is key.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the sponsor probably can't do everything themselves, right?
You're right. That's where contract research organizations, or CROs,
CRs,
often come into the picture. They're like specialized teams that sponsors can hire to help with different parts of the trial.
So if the sponsor is like the CEO, the CRO is the management team making sure everything runs smoothly on a day-to-day basis.
They can handle things like recruiting participants, collecting and managing data, and even monitoring the trial sites to make sure everything is being done according to GCP.
So they're the experts in all the nitty-gritty.
They're the experts.
Of clinical research.
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds like a whole orchestrated effort.
It is.
It's amazing how many people and layers of oversight are involved in bringing a new drug to market.
Absolutely.
So what happens if something goes wrong?
Right.
Like if a trial has some serious breaches of GCP or something.
Well, there are regulatory authorities, like the FDA here in the U.S., who are responsible for making sure that clinical trials are conducted ethically and safely. If they find serious issues. The consequences can range from warning letters to halting the trial altogether.
It's serious business.
It is.
So if I'm understanding this right, we have the sponsor who initiates and funds the trial. The PI who leads the research at their site, and the CRO who provides expertise and support. That's right.
And overseeing all of this is the IRB and regulatory bodies like the FDA.
It's a complex network of checks and balances. All designed to protect the people participating in the trials. And ensure that the data collected is reliable and trustworthy.
It's really eye-opening to see how much thought and effort goes into making sure clinical research is done right.
Absolutely.
So let's take a quick breather here.
Okay.
We've covered a lot in this first part of our dive into ICH-E6.
Yep.
We've talked about why these guidelines are so crucial. It's about protecting the people involved. And making sure the science is solid. We've looked at the role of the principal investigator, the importance of informed consent, and the whole idea of protocol adherence.
Absolutely.
And we've started to unravel this network of oversight from the sponsors to the CROs to the regulatory authorities.
It's amazing how interconnected everything is.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
There's still so much to explore.
A lot more to talk about. And what's really interesting is this whole system, these ICH-E6 guidelines. It's not just some dusty old rule book. It's constantly evolving as science and technology advance.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, clinical research is always pushing the boundaries of what's possible. So the guidelines need to be flexible enough to kind of keep up.
Exactly. Take, for example, all the new technology being used in clinical trials these days. You've got electronic data capture systems, remote monitoring, even wearable devices that collect patient data.
Wow.
In real time.
It's
a whole new world compared to just a few years ago.
So how has ICH-E6 kept pace with all these advancements?
Well, there is an addendum to the main ICH-E6 document that specifically addresses how to use these new technologies while still maintaining those core principles of GCP.
Right.
It's all about finding that balance between innovation and ensuring that things are still being done ethically and responsibly.
It's like adding a new chapter to the rule book.
Exactly.
To keep up with the times.
That's a great way to put it.
So it sounds like everyone who's involved in clinical research needs to stay on top of these updates.
Absolutely.
And really understand not just the rules,
right,
but the why behind them.
Yeah, it's not just about ticking boxes and blindly following procedures.
Right.
It's about really understanding the ethical considerations, the potential risks, and the importance of protecting the people who volunteer for these trials.
That makes me think about that whole process of informed consent.
Right.
It's not just about getting someone to sign a form.
No, it's about making sure they truly understand what they're getting into.
Yeah, and that must be challenging, especially when you're dealing with really complex medical concepts.
It's a huge responsibility. Imagine trying to explain a brand new treatment that uses cutting-edge gene therapy, for example.
It's crucial for investigators to take the time to explain things clearly using language that the participant can understand.
Right.
And to answer all of their questions honestly and thoroughly.
And I imagine that involves more than just a one-time conversation.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the trial.
You're absolutely right. Informed consent is an ongoing process.
Okay.
As the trial progresses.
Yeah.
New information might come to light, or the participant's situation might change.
Right.
It's essential for there to be an open line of communication throughout the entire trial so that participants can ask questions and voice any concerns that they might have.
It's all about building trust.
It is.
And making sure the participants feel respected and heard throughout the entire process.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the role of the PI, the importance of informed consent.
Right.
But how do we make sure everything is running smoothly?
Right.
And that GCP is being followed throughout that entire trial? That's where monitoring comes in.
Cool.
The sponsor of the trial is ultimately responsible for making sure everything's done right.
Yeah.
But they often delegate this task to the CRO.
Right, the expert.
Those experts that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Monitoring involves regularly checking in on those trial sites.
Okay.
Reviewing the data. Making sure that everything is aligned with the protocol and those GCP guidelines.
It's like having quality control inspectors on the factory floor.
Yeah.
Making sure the product is being made to the right specifications.
Exactly.
So what are these monitors looking for specifically?
They're looking for any signs of trouble, really. It could be anything from, minor deviations from the protocol to discrepancies in the data.
Okay.
To evidence that participants aren't being treated ethically.
Right.
Their job is to identify any potential issues and make sure they're addressed quickly and appropriately.
So what happens if they find something concerning?
It depends on the severity of the issue. Okay. Sometimes a simple clarification.
Yeah.
Or some additional training for the research staff is enough.
Right.
But if it's a serious breach of GCP, it could mean suspending the trial until the problem is fixed.
Wow.
Or even shutting it down completely.
It sounds like a very thorough process.
It is.
But it makes sense given how important it is to get things right.
It's not just about avoiding penalties or checking boxes.
Right.
It's about ensuring that the research is being conducted ethically and that the data collected is reliable. Ultimately, it's about making sure that any new treatments that come out of these trials are truly safe and effective for the people who will be using them.
That brings us back to the bigger picture, doesn't it?
It does.
We're talking about more than just rules and regulations.
Yeah.
We're talking about people's lives and their hopes.
Absolutely.
For better treatments.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how this whole system extends far beyond just that clinical trial phase. It really encompasses that entire life cycle of a drug.
Okay.
From its initial development in the lab, to its manufacturing and distribution, and even to post-market surveillance once it's available to the public.
It's mind-boggling to think about this whole network of guidelines and regulations.
It is.
And checks and balances, all designed to ensure that the medications that we rely on are safe and effective.
And that's not something to be taken lightly.
And it's reassuring to know that so much care and effort
goes
into every step of that process.
A lot of work goes into it.
It really is a testament to the incredible complexity of drug development.
It is.
It's a process that takes years of research, involves countless experts, and requires a deep commitment to scientific rigor and ethical conduct.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to see why you get so excited about all the nuances
It's fascinating.
of these guidelines. Yeah. It's more than just a set of rules.
Right.
It's a whole system that has real-world impact
It does.
on people's lives.
It really does. And one of the things I find most fascinating is that even with this intricate system in place, it's not static.
Right.
It's constantly evolving to keep up with new scientific discoveries and to address the challenges and opportunities that emerge as technology advances.
That makes sense. We've already talked about how ICH E6 has adapted to address the use of new technologies in clinical trials. But what other challenges and opportunities do you see on the horizon for GCP in the years to come?
I think one of the biggest challenges and opportunities lies in keeping pace.
Okay.
With the rapid advancements in fields like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data analysis, these technologies have the potential to completely revolutionize drug development.
Yeah.
But we need to make sure that GCP principles are integrated into their very fabric.
So it's not about rejecting these new technologies.
Right.
It's about figuring out how to use them responsibly and ethically.
Exactly.
Within the framework of GCP.
For example, imagine a future where artificial intelligence is used to design clinical trials.
Wow.
To analyze vast amounts of data, and even to identify potential participants who might benefit from a new treatment.
That sounds incredible.
It does.
But I can also see how it could raise some ethical concerns.
Right.
About bias and privacy.
You're right. And that's why ongoing dialogue and collaboration between experts and technology ethics in clinical research is going to be crucial.
Yeah.
We need to work together to ensure that these powerful tools are used in a way that benefits patients and society as a whole without compromising those core principles of GCP.
It sounds like the future of GCP will involve navigating some pretty complex ethical terrain.
It will.
But it also seems incredibly exciting.
It is.
With so much potential for advancements in drug development and personalized medicine.
I couldn't agree more. And while we can't predict exactly what the future holds, I'm confident that GCP will continue to evolve and adapt to ensure that clinical research is conducted with integrity, scientific rigor, and a deep commitment to the well-being of the people who participate in these trials.
It's inspiring to think about the impact
it is
that well-conducted clinical research can have on human health.
Absolutely.
And it's clear that ICH E6 and that whole system built around GCP plays a vital role in ensuring that research is done right.
It does. And it's not just about protecting the people in the trials. It's about making sure the research actually leads to treatments that really help patients in the real world.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's so easy to get caught up.
It is.
In all the technical details and the guidelines and all that. But at the end of the day, it's all about making people's lives better.
Exactly. Behind every clinical trial, there are countless individuals hoping for a breakthrough, a chance at a healthier future.
It's like we're all in this massive relay race, passing the baton from researchers to sponsors to regulators, all working towards that common goal of finding new and better treatments.
I love that analogy. And just like in a relay race, every step of the journey is crucial. A dropped baton, a misstep, can have serious consequences.
It makes you realize the immense responsibility that comes with conducting clinical research.
Huge responsibility.
And the trust that we as a society place in this whole system.
Absolutely.
You know, we're relying on these guidelines and regulations to protect us. To ensure that the drugs that we take are truly safe and effective.
And that trust isn't just handed out. It's earned through transparency, accountability, and a relentless pursuit of excellence.
ICH E6 and all those related guidelines and regulations are a testament to that commitment.
You know, it's interesting to think about how these guidelines also shape the culture of clinical research. It's not just about following the rules. It's about fostering that mindset.
Absolutely.
Of ethical conduct, scientific rigor, and patient-centered care.
Absolutely. GCP is more than just a checklist of procedures. It's a way of thinking. A way of approaching research with integrity and a deep respect for the people involved.
It's like a code of conduct.
It is.
A set of values that guide every decision and every action.
Exactly. And it's something that needs to be instilled in everyone who works in this field, from the newest research assistant to the most seasoned PI.
It's about creating a culture where doing the right thing isn't just an expectation, it's an instinct.
Well said. And that's ultimately what makes GCP so powerful.
It's not just a set of regulations, it's a framework for fostering a culture of excellence in clinical research.
I think you've done a fantastic job of really breaking down this complex topic. We've covered so much ground.
We have.
From the history of GCP to this intricate web of guidelines and regulations to the ethical considerations and the importance of patient-centered care.
It's been a pleasure to dive into this with you.
But I think the most important takeaway for our listeners is that GCP is more than just a set of rules.
Absolutely.
It's a reflection of our values, our commitment to scientific integrity, and our dedication to improving human health.
Beautifully put. And if our deep dive has sparked a curiosity in our listener to learn more, I encourage them to explore all the information that's available online. Maybe even consider getting involved in clinical research in some way.
It's a challenging but incredibly rewarding field. And there's always a need for passionate and dedicated individuals.
Well said.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the world of ICH E6 good clinical practice.
We have.
Hopefully you found it informative, insightful.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little bit inspiring.
I hope so.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
Keep learning.
And those curiosity fires burning.